think it's different for everybody because everybody has different lives. So I give this analogy all the time. I need to trademark it, but it's like if you have mental health is like it's like a house, and houses are strong depending on what the foundation is. And if the foundation is weak, then that house will fall. So I can have pretty blinds, my kitchen could look great. Oh, I got 4 or 5 bedrooms, but if that foundation have a bunch of cracks in it, that house will fall. And what we do as people, we make ourselves look as good as possible on the outside. But if our foundation is abuse, if our foundation is seeing alcohol, or just a whole bunch of negativity, like that becomes who we are, and we might look good, but eventually we can crumble from that. You know what I mean? And sometimes what has to happen is you have to break down that foundation yourself and build it up with the right things. And that's kind of where mental health, kind of comes in with that, because you have to figure out, okay, what exactly is my foundation? That's the first step. And that's not some, you just meditating, drinking some green tea, and then all this sunshine and rainbows come out. It is really tough to face those things. You know what I mean? Because that's accountability. And that's not easy to do for anybody.
So welcome to In Real Life with Siobhan. It's my first episode via video interview. I kind of wanted to take a different turn. I was just doing podcasts before, and now I want to do podcast and video interviews for those people who need to see the visual. So this is my good friend from high school, Record Rennie, class of 2013. Hey,
I already know.
Oh yeah, I'm at just in my 10th grade year when I transferred to
Mr. Smith class.
Yeah, Mr. Smith class. Shout out to Mr. Smith. That's still the homie. But yeah, we met in that class and we always just been, pretty tight. Every time we link up or every time we talk, it's like no time has went by. So Justin is a motivational speaker amongst other things. I'm gonna let him introduce himself. Justin, what do you do? What do you
I do too much. First I'm a follower of God. I try to put that first. Then I'll just I'm a mental health advocate. I'm a health educator for the youth. I work for a nonprofit organization, also in the process of creating my own. I set up platforms to get other people's voice out in terms of helping people with mental health. So it's called Mental Health for Millennials. And I also have my own podcast called the Pain to Power Podcast. So just trying to reach a whole bunch of different people, but also just spreading love, throughout all of those platforms. So that's the goal of my life right now.
Mental health for millennials. That gets us on our topic because that's what we're talking about. For people, especially for us, our generation, millennials. I feel like we struggle with mental health the most out of all generations, and that's maybe because of the time that we live in. I don't think anything has gotten worse. I think things have just been exposed more. So it seems like things have gotten worse, but things have always been bad. There's
absolutely
type of evil. There's always also, to look on the better side, some type of good. So I want to ask you, explain what mental health actually is first before we dive into
So it varies. So when you talk about your own mental health, it's really just I try to say it as simple as I can. It's really just a self-awareness of who you are mentally, your thought processes, and where those thoughts go. Are they focused in the past? Are they focused in the future? How good are you at being mindful and focusing on your real self in the present? And depending on where you are mentally will really determine the outcome of how you feel about yourself and just how your life probably will go. If I'm constantly focused on the future, I'm focusing on events that have never even happened yet. So, and if I have a negative mindset, which a lot of us have, then I'll always see a bunch of negative scenarios in my future, and I'll think that my life is horrible, but I never really focused on what's going on in my present. And your present could be good, but if you think about something negative, you'll think your whole life is that way. And if you focus on the past, those things are over with. You haven't moved on from them. And the more you focus on that, again, you can't focus on who you really are. You keep thinking you're this person from 5 years ago, then it becomes 10 or 15, and you never experience growth. So mental health is really self-awareness. Who are you at that moment, and who do you want to be? And it's a lot that goes into that to progress it, but it's something we can all do.
That's interesting that you talk about the moment. That is really important because a lot of us, I know this myself, like I don't be living in the moment a lot of times. Like I'm the person who thinks ahead. Like, okay, like I have to tell myself, like, Siobhan, enjoy like what's happening right now. It's okay. It's great to have goals, but like sometimes you can get too far ahead and like not enjoying like the milestones that you hit in the moment. So yeah, and then talk about the past. I think we've all have had those instances where something triggers. And I don't know, triggers are real, you know?
They're very real. They're very real. But here's the thing, like, that's where the self-awareness comes in. Self-awareness is you having to face those triggers. If you're going back into the past to like face a fear or something that you've dealt with, you might have triggers from things that you thought you moved on from. So whether it's bullying or possible assault, you might have moved past it or you think you have, but those triggers still take place and they become baggage. So if I was bullied a lot and it really harmed me, and or that's in my family life, I was always getting bullied or demeaned, you might bring that into another relationship thinking that's just how life is. But you didn't really face like, yo, that was really negative for me. So we all have different things that we have to face and turn that pain into power, you know, quick plug. But you have to be able to do those type of things. We all have to do it. In school, we talk about something called ACEs. And that's basically something that we all have. So it's like a traumatic experience. It could be poverty. It could be losing loved ones, people going to jail. And if you're a minority, you're going to have more of those ACEs. And the more that you have, it leads to risk of dying at a younger age, poor mental and cognitive development, and a whole bunch of other negative outcomes. And unless you face them and realize how you can turn them around into a positive, then you'll keep letting those things be down on you and you won't have the life that you want.
That's some real stuff. No, it's real because I think that those triggers, Janae Aiko said it. That's what
what she said.
I had to go there because, you know, if you don't, it is a lot of times where you think that like you feel through some things and then something like somebody will say something and you just like, dang, like I thought I was past this, and now you got to go back. And I'm not gonna say some things. Do you believe that triggers, you can really get rid of triggers, or do you believe that they're like triggers will always be there, but there's a way to confront them and move like and get them out the way? I guess for lack of better words.
I'll say yes and no. Like it might be something that you might be able to get past from. Like say you didn't like the way your ears or nose look like because you were just young and you know people might have bullied you for it. You might be able to get past it. Like, yo, I like how I look and that's it. But some things could be deeper. You know, maybe you lost a loved one that you really cared about, and you can control it. So say that the trigger pops up again if it's the anniversary of their death or it's their birthday. You might feel sad about it, but the control part comes in. Am I going to let it take me down into this rabbit hole, and then does it lead to bad, you know, coping behaviors, and does it turn me into this negative person? So it's ways you can be sad but turn it around. You know what I mean? So that's where it can get a little tricky, but you can control them and get rid of some, I think.
Okay, so why does our generation struggle with mental health so much? Why do you think?
It's a variety of reasons. Like I think that it's always been an issue throughout generations, but we've covered it up. You know, we had so many issues with racism and all of that, you know, in our past, and we still do now. But anytime you bring up something like mental health, especially in the Black community, we never address those things. It was just either you crazy or something wrong with you, and we just let it go. So there are a lot of people who have fallen by the wayside because of that. And I think because of social media, it's really started to show the issues that we're dealing with, and millennials are in that social media generation. So I think that the main problem is it's how all of us as millennials have grown up, and we never really received like a toolkit for happiness. Happiness is a skill set. I tell people all the time, happiness is a toolkit. And if you're raised given a whole bunch of demeaning things, or everything you see on TV could be negative, it's in the music you listen to, if you're never bringing in positives, it shapes your foundation of who you are. So you have to kind of turn that around and break down that foundation and give that happiness toolkit. And that's with mindfulness. If you need therapy, it might be therapy. It gets a little tricky when we start bringing up medication, but I want to show people how God and mental health are so similar. And we can talk about that too. But we have to start taking those steps to, better ourselves and realize who we are as a person, and not trying to be a whole bunch of other people, because it'll make us go crazy.
Who child get into the who you are? Because I think at the end of the day, that's what mental health is about. Like what's the word I'm looking for? Realizing who you are and staying in that. And being okay with like changing, not necessarily changing your complete person, but growing as a person. Because sometimes I think that we get attached to like our old self. And when God is trying to like grow us through something or teach us through something,
Absolutely.
I don't really want to let it go. And it's like, that's me. And it's like, but no. Like,
that was a season.
And it may not always have to be like a bad thing either. It can be a good thing and you're just progressing. He's just like pruning or improving what you already have.
Exactly.
What you said about the toolkit, that was a really good thing, because I don't know why, and I've been binge watching Girlfriends, and that show, is so many lessons in that show. I know, but I was tired in. It's a message to my back. It's so many, like, even though people think of it as a girl show, like, it's so many lessons on both ends, men and women, that can learn from that show. And one of the things is that Joan, she starts going to therapy. And they like, yeah, I mean, they're joking, but they're saying like, yeah, because you're crazy, you need help, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, going to therapy does not make you crazy. Where did we get this stigma from, where like people who care or notice, because I think that's a strong attribute, to notice that like, hey, it's something wrong, and I want to live a better life than what I'm already living.
Facts.
And or if people go to therapy to like couples therapy to like fix somebody else. No, it's like everybody got issues. Everybody that's living and breathing got issues. How can I work through those, and how can I like better myself through that to have better relationships? Because at the end of the day, I feel like going to therapy at the end of the day helps you be relational, and like helps you in relationships. Because if you don't know what's going on with you and can't resolve things that's going on with you, how can you have relationships? So I don't know where that bad stigma came from, as far as like you going to therapy. I
don't know. Like, I gotta guess, but I don't know, because it's not a black thing. A lot of us do it, but I just know in the black community, we're not really strong in taking care of ourselves. And I think we're like that with a lot of different things. I think we've been judged so much based on the color of our skin, and that brought a whole lot of pain and all that. So they like, don't be bringing something else into the mix that we ain't trying to deal with. So it kind of just led to us being judgmental among ourselves. We got taught that, like, to judge ourselves for a lot of different reasons, and never judged in a positive way. It's like, whatever is different about you, it's bad. Like, it's like, if you act this way, it's not a good thing. If you're not acting like the masses, then something's wrong. And I think that's, I don't know.
That's the life. That really is. And it's funny because I just wrote a blog about that, but not specifically generality. It was more so in the dance community, and how like I feel like left out because I don't want to do what the mass dancers want to do.
Right.
But I guess the next question would be, what does healthy mental health look like? And is there a standard for everybody, or is it different for everybody?
I think it's different for everybody, because everybody has different lives. So I give this analogy all the time. I need to trademark it, but it's like, if you have mental health is like it's like a house, and houses are strong depending on what the foundation is. And if the foundation is weak, then that house will fall. So I can have pretty blinds, my kitchen could look great. Oh, I got 4 or 5 bedrooms, but if that foundation have a bunch of cracks in it, that house will fall. And what we do as people, we make ourselves look as good as possible on the outside. But if our foundation is abuse, if our foundation is seeing alcohol, or just a whole bunch of negativity, like that becomes who we are, and we might look good, but eventually we can crumble from that. You know what I mean? And sometimes what has to happen is you have to break down that foundation yourself and build it up with the right things. And that's kind of where mental health, kind of comes in with that, because you have to figure out, okay, what exactly is my foundation? That's the first step. And that's not some, you just meditating, drinking some green tea, and then all this sunshine and rainbows come out. It is really tough to face those things. You know what I mean? Because that's accountability. And that's not easy to do for anybody. So you kind of got to face that, go down deep in that tunnel, break it down, face it, and then see, okay, so for my own personal life, for the goals that I have, for the dream, if you're being spiritual, for the dreams that God has created for me, what tools does God want me to have so I can have that life that I want? So then if your foundation is strong, it doesn't matter how exactly the house looks. You might not have all the money in the world. You might not be the person that they deem as super handsome or super pretty, but you might be strong enough because you got God by you, and that will take you way past social media followers or anything that we deem as popular or trending or status in our own world. So
my man is talking.
Man, I'll be trying sometimes. So that's kind of where mental health kind of comes in, and it's just adding those tools to better yourself, whether it be mindfulness, exercise, your diet. There's a lot of different things that you can do, and then put God in that. Stop thinking God and mental health is separate, or God is not separate from anything that we do. So we have to stop thinking that different actions, God is just like in these different little doors or different little houses. He sees everything that we're doing. So we have to put him in that in order for us to truly get to where we need to get to.
That's real life. I think that what you said about like separating God and putting, well, God could do this, but he over here for this. Like at the end of the day, a lot of, specifically talking about the New Testament, once Jesus comes and dies and rises again and all that, we get the Spirit. He's really talking about your heart, and your heart is your mind. So it's all a mind thing. Like everything that Jesus did, he did it. But it's the fact of like believing it, and like it's a battle of the mind. Like the mind is definitely a battlefield, and I think that like once you, like you said, God really, I believe in Christian therapists, and I have a Christian therapist, and like that's real life. Like talking to somebody and including God in it instead of just talking to a regular therapist that may not be able to understand your faith or don't agree with your faith. That's kind of hard to balance that, because at this point, they're now giving you tools for you to help you instead of God helping you through whatever the situation may be. How do you feel about the Black community saying, well, just pray?
The thing with that is, even if you are just praying, you have to have belief behind the prayer. So what exactly are you believing in when you pray? Are you saying, I just want a better life? What does that mean? What does that look like? And are you believing in that God to provide that for you? You know what I mean? And then are you going to do the works that it requires to do that? If you want to be better emotionally or mentally, and then you start getting these messages of either going to therapy or just trying to find some help for yourself, and you don't do it, then you're not really believing in God, because he's the one that provided that for you. The more that I've grown in trying to understand God, the less I believe in like coincidences or things just happen. I really think that things come into our life that we pray for and that we ask for and that our spirit asks for. So if you're praying and you're not really doing the work behind it, it really doesn't do anything. And that kind of leads to how I try to say God and mental health it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to any therapist or you look at any mental health blogs, they'll always talk about focusing on the present and focusing on who you are now. All that is faith, because you can't really focus on the future like that. You have to be fine with where you are right now and hope and pray that things will get better over time, or your goals will happen. You just got to take it day by day. It's the same thing as faith. Believe that God will look out for you. Believe your dreams will come true. That's mindfulness. It's the same thing. It's just some people say it from
different wording.
Yeah, and some people say it from this standpoint. It's the same thing, and you got to put those together, and that'll really make your life better. It takes so much pressure off. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I try to do.
Believing is the catalyst to how you move.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think people can like separate those two. Like, I believe, and then they think that they have to work in themselves from their own strength in order to gain what God, like, oh, well, now I need to gain God's this and God's that. And it's like, was Jesus not enough? Like,
yeah, right.
You did everything else. So, like, your believing will lead you to, like you said, it's really a faith aspect. Like, you believe, it's going to lead you to walk in a different path anyways.
Yeah.
And I think I have one last question.
Dang, just one? Okay.
Just one? Wait, we covered a lot though.
Yeah, we did.
What are some tactics that helps, I guess? And I think we already talked about that. Well, I guess we can get to just like the generality. How did you get to this point of like, this is what you wanted to do? Like, you felt like this is what God put in your heart as far as like motivational speaking, not just motivational speaking, because you have motivational speakers that, like I said, don't believe in God, and it's all like, okay, self-help, like you got to go deep within and pull out stuff. And a lot of their philosophy is based off the Bible, but they don't even know it. That's
exactly.
But, how did you get there in your life?
Well, see, honestly, like God was new to me. Well, still is new to me. Like it kind of popped up on. Well, I don't want to say popped up, but he came into my life more so in college, and it's kind of just been this journey of figuring out, okay, like who are you, number one, and how can I just make it, kind of short and sweet. I had to go through things. I had to go through my own pain, and once the football dream was over, then it was like, okay, who am I now?
Oh.
And
so
I
you
realized
had that was your identity crisis, because you felt like your identity was there.
And it ruined, absolutely tarnished my college experience. College was awful for me. A lot of people don't know that unless you were kind of around, but that's a whole other story there. So yeah, it was like, okay, what I realized was I was whoever the people around me told me. How can I say it? Whatever people said around me was who I was. So luckily I had good people around me who instilled positivity in me. So I'm like, okay, I'm a good student. I'm a good football player. You know what I mean? And now that I hit college and I'm on my own, the voices are gone, number one. And now the football dream is over. So now I'm like in this empty space, like, okay, what
am I doing?
Yeah, and it's so scary. So it led to like this attack of demons and just this attack of negativity that really just exploded in my own mind and led to just really bad anxiety about everything. They call it like generalized anxiety. So you worry about everything. So if you're getting attacked by a bear, that fight or flight that you will feel that about everything, whether it be socially, whether it be your self-esteem. It could be a variety of different things. So imagine how that would affect your everyday if you're always in fight or flight. So you'll isolate yourself, and you really just go down a dark road. So luckily, let's just say I went through a lot of stuff. And then luckily my dad called, and I'm crying and everything. And he was like, because I thought I had a bunch of illnesses or something for me to act this way. And he was like, did you just look up anxiety or something? And I went on this blog, and people were saying the exact same things that I was saying. And it feels so good to know that you're not alone. And that's one thing that people need to know. Your story may be unique, but it's not super original that you're the only person dealing with it. So there is someone out there for you. And then basically from that point on, it's just been kind of, okay, going through that of how do I manage the anxiety and how do I figure out who I am? And that self-awareness kind of helped me, kind of beat down some of those demons. And it just kind of over prayer and over time, over years, kind of led to me saying, okay, that was a lot of pain that I was going through, still maybe going through. But look how you turned it around to having a whole bunch of mental health activities, panels, podcasts to help other people. That's where that power comes from. And that's not something that you just come up with. That's something that's in your spirit. That's something that you pray on and you get answer for. And it's just really became something, special to me and something that I'm trying to grow. When it doesn't leave, something doesn't supposed to just act on. And that's just kind of what I'm doing. So
that was me. I was running away from it though.
Yeah. We all do that.
I was running away from it, Justin. When I tell you, a few years ago, it's been about 5 years now, when God was like, yeah. And I never necessarily saw myself like preaching or like at a specific church, but I did see myself speaking about that, like maybe like traveling. And I was like, I don't want to do that. What you talking about? I was running, but deep down inside, I did want to do it. But I was like, well, ain't nobody else around me want to do that. So like, maybe I'm tripping or something. No, I literally was like, had to come to a point where like that feeling still hasn't left me. And like me wanting to help other people, like having that desire to help other people see life past the surface level is like real life. And I think that's what you have to like, it's a lot of people, God has put in our heart different things to do, but wanting to help like somebody become free and like experience what you've experienced and your freedom and steps in freedom and like helping people souls, that is like, it feels like a big responsibility, and it's something that like you want to run from. And now I was like, I want to go. It won't be me.
I did want to give you a shout out though, because doing this is not easy. A lot of people give like tips on how to improve themselves, this or that, but they don't also show their vulnerable side in order for them to do it. So a lot of times we don't listen to people giving us advice because it's like, how do you haven't been what I've been through, and they might have, they just never express it. But with you,
all the keys.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like with you, like for you to be vulnerable and for you to be a Black woman and be vulnerable with all the things you guys go through just on a daily basis throughout history, for you to do what you do, that there's really some praise and some shout outs to go with that. So definitely, just keep doing what you're doing, because it's impacting a lot more people than you may think. So we both just got to keep this going.
Oh, thanks, Justin. Is there anything else that you wanted to say? He already shouted out, things that you do. Y'all follow my boy Justin. I'm definitely going to put your information in the video so that the people can see. But I definitely had to talk to you about this because, number one, like you said, God and mental health go hand in hand. And I think that I definitely like to use my platform on social media to like help people see past the because there's so many shenanigans on social media. Like you have to be like, okay, you have to get to a point where you're like, okay, I have to block and delete people because what is on my TL? Like, what is this foolishness? And I also just try not to always be deep, but to always just be overall a positive light to anybody. It can be in the simplest thing. It's just me being goofy in my personality, or being led by God to talk about certain things on social media because like don't. And as far as you like commenting on my vulnerability, that is something that I had to like become okay with, because I always felt like I was sharing too much.
Oh yeah.
Like people was like, okay, well she talk a lot about stuff, or like on social media there's always this prerequisite of like showing yourself but not showing your true self or showing your best self. And I don't like that. Like the person that you see on social media is the same person that you see in person. Like I'm the same person on and off. So that's something that like I really have asked God not for me to like stray away from, because I've definitely had a few people reach out to me and be like, yo, like your relationship with God or something that like I want. And I'm like, don't want my relationship, want your own, but it's okay to be real with God. It's okay to be mad at God. It's okay, like, to just, it's a relationship. Like the same relationship that you have with a person on earth, the same thing with God. Like it's the same thing. Like, stop thinking of him as a master that you serve and thinking of him as like a father. Because you have, and that's hard for some people too, because some people might not have had a relationship with the father. But like God is so many more things just than a father. He's a friend. Like if you have a great friendship and you think about God as your friend, it can develop into like that father-child relationship over time. But yeah, I guess that's all we got, friend.
Yeah, one more thing there. Let me add one more thing.
So
for anybody, so like for anybody that's feeling lost and really feeling like they're in that deep, dark tunnel, what I'm about to say, it might sound scary at first, but it's really like the best thing in the world. Like, if you're in that tunnel, you don't know where to go. Number one, you got to stop living your life and live the life God wants you to have. And sometimes what's scary about that is like people don't know, okay, who is God? Like what path am I supposed to be on? And you realize like the path that you're on is all in your mind, and clearly your mind might not be in the right place right now. So your mind is taking you to this negative spot. But if you're on God's path, number one, God is not someone who's here to stray you and push you in a negative situation. He wants to bring you out. That's the whole point. It's about being born again. So if you follow that, it does take a load off. And I have to tell myself this too, because I still go through it sometimes. But it takes a load off because you know that you're now in this person's hands. You're not controlling everything. There are actions that you must take, but it's actions on a path that has already been created for you if you follow that right path. You start trying to make your own stuff and trying to control every tool.
Because when you have to do that, you have to be responsible for the success and the failure. Like that's your soul. You're solely responsible for that. And that's what people don't understand about like God and faith is that, and maybe they've just gotten the wrong preaching for a long time, but the wrong doctrine. But like the freedom comes in knowing that like it's not all on you.
Yes.
And that's what I enjoyed most about, and that's why I'm still in it now. Trust me, I didn't have my times with God. Like, all right, I'm about to push this over. But in the end, he's always come through. So yeah, that's true.
That's dope. But that's all I got now.
Thank you for doing this with me. And
of course.
Next week, y'all, we are gonna be talking about friendship with my best friend Imani, so y'all want to stay tuned for that. Basically, when do you know how important is friendship, and when do you know you should let somebody go? It's gonna get real, and I can't wait for that one either.
I'm waiting on that one.
But yeah, thank you, Justin.
Of course.